Hey there folks, good to see ya. My name is Mr. Mooman11 and today we're going to be breaking down some of my high kill resurgence gameplay to help you better understand how to get more kills and more wins every time you drop into Rebirth Island. As we go through the gameplay, we'll analyze my movement, my gunfights, my positioning, everything, and go over what I'm doing right so you can emulate that in your own games. Of course, we'll also go over what can be improved on so that together we can learn from my mistakes, of which there were definitely some costly ones I made in this game. And if you do in fact learn something new today, please hit that like button and consider subscribing for more Warzone content delivered to you by the only Call of Duty YouTuber who has different colored LED lights in his background. So original. Alrighty, let's get started and hop right into the Warzone. Now, a lot of times, some of the most actiony parts of a Resurgence game can happen right at the start depending on where you plan on dropping. This is a crucial part of the game because the first few seconds after everyone lands can be super hectic, with everyone trying to shoot each other or worse, beat each other off. Phrasing, I know, but the point stands. Therefore, unless you've got a dude literally right in front of you, your number one priority needs to be getting a ground loot weapon. It is a whole lot easier to take a 1v1 when you've got an SMG and the enemy next to you still has a pistol. Now, once you've got something decent in your hands, your focus should change from scanning the ground for loot to checking around you for any scattering enemies. Audio cues can alert you to general directions of enemies, and things like open doors or chests can mean you're hot on the trail of someone close by. Now, let's break this fight down. I've already broken the guy's armor, so I've got the clear advantage here, but I still don't want to take much damage since I know that at least 3 teams dropped here at Chemical. Notice how instead of mantling through the window, I took a running jump. This ensures that 1, I keep my gun up and have an easier time fighting this dude since I don't have any climbing animation getting in my way, and 2, it gives me momentum so that the guy down below has a much harder time tracking me. From his point of view, he's most likely going to be staring at the window expecting me to have peeked, so by jumping out, he isn't able to hit a single shot. Now here I run up on 2 different teams fighting, but these first 2 guys are clearly together, so I try to reposition after getting a few shots in them so they don't just focus on me. Instead, I weakened them both for this guy to get my double kill, so he's gotta die for that. During all that though, a different team is shooting at me from bio, and this guy's death pings revealed that his teammates have moved to decon. That means that this little fella here is from an entirely different team, and after he dies and I see his death ping show his buddy still floating in, that there's still a completely different squad in Chemical where my teammate just died. So with all that going on, to recap, I know that half the lobby, 5 squads, are all within my close proximity, and to top it off, I've got a bounty on my head. But for now, I know I've cleared out this area, so you've got to remember to plate up and make sure you're all reloaded. And if you need to take a moment to collect your thoughts or go follow me on Twitch at twitch.tv/MrMooman11, you can take the time to do that, especially if you know you're the last one on your team in this area. You've got to be able to hold down the fort while your duo respawns and make sure your team doesn't get wiped from the game. Now, let's talk about this engagement here. It's super easy to get this first kill since I'm playing like a rat waiting for my teammate to respawn, but with 3 enemy pings moving towards my position, there's absolutely no way I can confidently take them out with my ground loot PPSH and no armor plates in. One of the biggest determining factors in getting more kills and more wins is being able to pick your fights effectively. A 3v1 in this position with this weapon would almost certainly mean death for me, so instead repositioning is the best option. This gives me time to armor up while on the move and get to a more advantageous position. Just remember, you're not always going to be fighting just one squad, so you've got to be prepared to fight any one third partying even if you're not in the best spot you'd want for yourself. And remember to keep moving after you take damage and plate up anytime you get a moment to breathe. Shutting doors behind you while on the move can break enemies' line of sight from you and give you an easy auditory cue to let you know if they're close behind. I see that my teammate took care of the guy that shot at me, so I start moving towards the last known location of where that other squad was 20 seconds ago. Unfortunately, another one moves in and downs him, so I double back to try to help, but as soon as I do that, I hear the door I was moving towards slam open behind me. This fight here is a good masterclass on switching targets as soon as you eliminate one threat, but with all the action that had been going on, my shots were not as clean on my second target as I would have liked. Thankfully, since I was like the only person on this side of the map that hadn't gone down yet, I still had myself revive, which this guy was definitely not expecting. This goes to show that you've got to be 100% sure the threat is truly neutralized before you go in for something like a revive, especially when you're 2 feet away from said threat. Now, there isn't much I could have done here to avoid this death, even if I had gotten the double kill, since that full squad from decon finally pushed out the third party. But my duo did make it back to the area, and since I know there's a ton of loot on the ground, I should be able to land back in and help them out, even if there's enemies right on top of them. No one else is down there when I get back, so it gives me a second to plate up and grab whatever weapons I want, but you've got to stay aware of your minimap. It let me know there were people above me and behind me in the gas on the other side of the boiler room, and since there's no easy way to fight the squad on the roof just yet, I start moving towards the stairs into boiler to cut off at least one escape route from the guy in the gas. It's important when you're surrounded to keep your head on a swivel and get as much visual information as you can. Sure enough, one of the guys from the roof drops down, which is just a bad tactic in general. You don't want to give up your high ground advantage, especially if 1, you don't need to, and 2, you don't know what you're dropping into. It's not that big of a deal early game if you're hunting for kills and your teammates are still alive like this guy's were, but when it's getting to the final circle, it's just not worth the risk of dying and losing the game for one additional kill. Foreshadowing? Nah. But finally, the action has subsided enough for us to get our loadout over here. The last death ping I got showed there was a guy above us, so I want to try to clear it at least the 4th floor before I grab my loadie in case the dude inside wants to get all up on our business while we're in the class selection screen. Never hurts to try to pick off someone landing in though, as long as they're within 10 meters from the ground. Anything higher than that and they'll have ridiculously powerful spawn protection on that negates your damage so much so that each shot is worth only 1 damage. This is one thing Verdansk mains don't always know about when hopping over to Rebirth. You're definitely not able to beam people out of the sky here unless you've got a sniper headshot on them. While I was on the way to my loadout, I heard the guy I was looking for on the roof, but he sounded far enough away for me to safely climb the ladder, which is not always the case. Just like with the fight earlier where I took a running jump through the window, you want to start your engagements with momentum, so it's more difficult for your enemies to land shots on you. Instead of just climbing the ladder and giving your opponent a stationary target to aim at, slide, bunny hop, drop shot, anything to just keep your movement up, and you'll make your 1v1s a lot more one-sided. And just as a side note, climbing ladders can be a death trap if the person you're going after is paying attention to you climbing it, since you have literally zero ability to fight back. Therefore, finding ways to circumvent those death traps, like taking alternative routes or utilizing jump spots, can make the difference between winning and losing an engagement. Luckily, I've got just the guide video for you detailing all the best jump spots around the map, so check that out at the end of the video or by clicking the card in the top right hand corner of the screen. Now back to the action. When you've got the opportunity to third party from a distance, you don't need crazy movement since no one is firing back at you. Instead, the most important attribute is to have solid accuracy. Mounting up can be an excellent way to mitigate as much recoil as possible, just don't stay in the same spot for too long or enemies will start looking for you camping. With the circle about to close and having just used 100 rounds of AR, take the time to replenish your ammo before you get caught lacking, and in 4K nonetheless. There are these ammo crates scattered around the map that'll give you 60 rounds of whatever your primary and secondary weapons are, as long as those two are different, but you can only use each one once per game. Now, I see my teammate floating in getting shot here, but there's honestly really no point for me to fire back at this guy since I've got the gas pushing me in and he could have a sniper and totally decimate me, so I just snope out of there and get out of his line of sight. Randomly, I pick up stopping power rounds out of this box, and it's just a good rule of thumb to pop it any time you get it, since the armor penetration it gives is super OP. I check back up on the sniper in Red Church to make sure the coast is clear while I decide what move to make, and some kids floating in for their loadout make up my mind for me. I push up the hill towards them, but start ADSing before I get there, so the moment I see them, I can get shots on target. And, I mean, stopping power just melts, dude. Look at that. Now, I know I saw 2 drop in on that loadie, but I've only downed 1, so I reposition and look for the second dude who decided bum rushing me would be the right play. And let me say, you're not that guy, pal. You're not that guy. When I get his death pings, I know I don't need to push out for the first guy down, since his teammates aren't going for him and he's about to die to the gas. So instead, I immediately start scanning the area they were in on the minimap. But this isn't the best fight for me to fight, since I'm on the low ground and don't know exactly where in prison the other 2 are. Now when you're in your own game, try not to get tunnel vision like I've got right now. Sure, I'm strafing side to side to help make anyone trying to headshot me harder, but I've really got no strategic advantage by holding this position. And even if I didn't totally potato those shots, it's not like I'd be able to finish the kill even if I down the guy anyway, so I'd have been better off moving to my next objective like 20 seconds ago. Regardless, it's fire sale time, which for those of you that don't know, happens every single game of Resurgence as soon as the second circle fully closes. Once you see that solid white little 3 underneath the minimap, the fire sale will start about 5 seconds later. Another thing to point out here is my pathing on the way to this buy station. Anytime you're moving across open ground like this, you want to be slide canceling to get to your target faster and to make shooting you just that little bit harder. I also dipped around to the side of this building here to make sure if the guy on top prison peeked me again, I wouldn't be in his line of sight. Now when you're at the buy, you always want to get your free self-revive. And the best case scenario going into the last few minutes of the game is to have full ammo, full plates, a gas mask, your self-res, a UAV in the sky, and a streak in your pocket. Obviously that's not always doable, but that'd be ideal, especially if you can top it off with a deadie. It's also just good form to ping the map anytime you get extra information on an enemy team's whereabouts. Communicating with your team, whether they're a bunch of randoms or your pre-made friend group or a mix of the two, can be the key to winning the game. It gets everyone focused on the direction the closest threat is and gives your team the slight edge over the enemy squad. Since there's no real easy and safe way to get onto the roof of docks here where that other enemy team is, the best alternative is to get to a different piece of high ground and engage them from up there. And here's where I make the first of a string of mistakes. One super solid way to secure a kill is to down someone and then immediately switch to your precision airstrike to finish them off. Since I didn't actually get the down, it's really easy for the guys up top to run away without my precision doing any damage to them. The one thing that airstrike did do was clear us a path to take the high ground from them, so that's exactly what we do. While we do now have the advantage over the team that was here at docks, this rooftop is actually really awful in terms of who has lines of sight on you. Everywhere from top prison to headquarters to all the little staircases by the buy station have super mean head glitch spots that you can get completely beamed from. It doesn't always work out like that, and you can flip the switch on them, but the point is to be very aware of your pieces of cover when you're up here on the dock's rooftop. Try to slide to different pieces of cover and always check around you to make sure you're not getting flanked from below. When you're over here on the slanted rooftop part of docks, you can bob and weave up and down across the different parts of the roof to throw off anyone aiming at you. You also need to be checking all the different potential peak spots across the road from you, starting from the highest peaks like Lighthouse and Prison, then working your way down to the windows of HQ and White Church. I would have loved to have my precision for finishing off this kill here, but at least it cleared the route up to get to this position in the first place. Keep scanning your surroundings, and remember, you don't have to be taking fights. If you fire at multiple different squads, they'll all be looking at you, and when the game is drawing to a close, you don't really want to be the center of attention. One other issue with being up here on the dock's rooftop is that people falling from the sky can catch you off guard, so as soon as you hear that parachute, you need to immediately focus your attention on the threat at hand, even if you're in the middle of a long-range gunfight. I made my second big mistake here by not following this guy to kill him. I already gave up my high ground to get on his level, plus I had better weapons and more armor. There's absolutely no reason I should have stopped here. I think in the moment I was expecting him to turn around and face me, but he had no reason and just kept running. Knowing that I totally botched that decision, I returned to my team and internalized that mistake, so there's no way I could possibly make that same mistake again, especially in this game, since that defeat is so fresh in my mind, right? Right? Why would I do that again? I'm not foreshadowing anything. But on a different note, let's talk about contracts. Here at the end of the game, I find that bounty contracts are super hit or miss. I guess they never miss, huh? I've honestly found no rhyme or reason this late in the game as to when a bounty contract will allow you to accept it versus when it counts as the fake consolation loot that does nothing. I picked up bounties in the final circle that'll activate, and I've become a bounty way after I've been awarded consolation points, so I'm just honestly not sure why some work and some don't at this late stage. All that being said, if you've got one right in front of you, feel free to pick it up, it won't hurt you, but just don't go out of your way to try to get a bounty that'll most likely not do anything for you. But now that the final circle is starting to close, it's time to gatekeep since you've moved early and are in prime position where the circle is poised to go. Make sure no one is going to get a surprise flank on you, then prepare to outgun the squad across the street you saw a minute ago. Waiting to move to the final circle this late is just not a good idea, and you don't want to be caught in a situation like this squad was. They've got the gas against their backs and some very scary cows with guns to their front. There's no real easy way for them to engage us or run across the street since they've waited so long to move. Moral of the story, move early to get into position at the final circle. You'll have a lot more room to work with before the circle starts to close and restricts your options. Now, with just 2 solos left against us 3, I'm feeling pretty good about our odds. Maybe a little bit too confident. The top dock's roof is just out of circle, so I decided to float over to the watchtower, which is not a bad idea in itself, but I didn't realize at the time that I could have just stayed on the rafters just under the roof and been just fine. Some absolute goofball decides to buy his teammate back, and he just gets demolished for that. It's honestly not a bad tactic though, and the person floating in has a massive advantage since they have insane spawn protection and a decent SMG. If you're ever in this position, float as long as you can to wherever the next circle is going, and try to finish off anyone working their way over to you. But with my teammates focusing that guy, I decided to go off after the other solo, which was my last big mistake. I've still got the high ground, and I can easily get back into docks to beat him into the next circle. Instead, I chase after him with a super slow ADS weapon and just barely see him for a split second. For some reason, I think he's going to try to run up the stairs in the 1 second I lost sight of him, and just get completely gunned down before I can even get my sights aimed in at him. My hubris was too big, and I paid the price for it. Long story short, my 2 teammates couldn't take out their solo, so we didn't even finish second. We got third, which was really disheartening and textbook what not to do in the final circle. But this is a guide video on how to get more kills and more wins, so we're not going to go out on some stupid loss. Here's a final circle breakdown that's actually played right. To give it a little context on this game heading into the final circle, I know there's one guy directly below me inside Boiler Room, and I'm about to find out there's another guy on top of Decon just having a field day with Reaper's now lifeless body. I get behind cover to reload, and he decides to make a mad dash towards the buy station, and lo and behold, he buys back his teammate too, just like in the last game. Oh, and side note, these 2 games were actually played back-to-back, so the memory of that awful play I made last game was fresh in my mind. Therefore, instead of dropping into Boiler Room to take a 50-50 fight, I decide to move through the gas into the next zone before anyone else gets the chance to. I would have liked to have shut this door, but the freaking gas mask animation always gets in the way at the worst times, so that gets left wide open while I move up a level to get a slight high ground advantage on the guy pushing out behind me. The Krew was a really accurate weapon in the first place, so I didn't need to mount there, but I thought I'd try anyway. My character model decides to commando lunge across the windowsill to try to throw me for a loop, but it doesn't work. The next several seconds are spent with everyone left alive, sitting in their respective corners on different floors, which, I mean, it's fine, it's the last circle, so there's no action until the circle starts to move again, and one of the other 2 solos goes to buy back his teammate. In retrospect, this move here isn't great since I hop up on this window ledge, which potentially leaves me exposed to the other solo, but I play it right and dip back inside after securing the kill. Since I've still got some gas mask left, I take a peek back outside and get this guy's location. I knew the gas mask animation would try to screw me again, so I back up once more, then re-peek once the animation is finished to secure that kill as well. Like good teammates, Reaper and my randoms were giving me callouts to find the last guy. Let's hear what they were saying live in game chat.
There he is, to your right, to your right.
Body.
No, he's flying to your right.
The fuck are you saying? Reaper, don't give that call out behind you.
Yeah, so just pro tip. Make sure the callouts you're giving are actually accurate. You don't want to screw over your teammate in a high-pressure situation. But with that, folks, I hope walking you all through some high-kill gameplay and breaking down each moment was helpful for you. Like I said at the beginning, I hope you were all able to take something away from this video, and if you learned something new, please hit that like button and subscribe for more. Let me know in the comments below what your best strategies are for high-kill Rebirth Island wins, or come stop by my live stream for a chat over at twitch.tv/MrMooMan11. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.